Examine the state of transport capacity over the past decade, and you will find both extreme shortages, which hurt shippers, and extreme surpluses, which hurt carriers. As we head towards what is hopefully an improving economy and growing freight volumes, is there a better way to manage transport capacity in this country? Editorial Director Lou Smirlis posed that question to supply chain professionals at our annual Decisions Roundtable, sponsored by Shaw Tractor. They had a lot to say and emphasized the need to scrutinize current supply chain practices.
Well, we're in 48 locations across Canada. I can probably name some cities here and people don't hear about them, like Dresden and Forest and Comber, which are in Ontario, by the way. And we need trucks, and we are in a specialized market, so we need flatbeds. And variations of them. Some of them are drop decks, or some are multi-axle, depending what our needs are. So for us, in order to assure capacity, we believe in true partnerships. We really have to work with our carriers, and we work hard to ensure that. They have to be profitable. We have to understand a little bit of their costing. We still have to lean pretty hard to make sure we have our right costs. But at the same time, if that person has to go through a change and we have to look for somebody new, the market's pretty thin. As we grow, working with those people, they'll grow with us. And maybe they'll grow their capacity with us along the way. And that's one way of assuring capacity, working along side by side with our business and looking for new ways of moving our capacity, maybe trying to consolidate our loads, send it a second day rather than the same day. Trying to work within the capacity of the operators is another way of reinventing yourself.
Heather, your thoughts on that? Is there a better way to manage capacity than what we've been used to over the last few decades?
A couple things, very similar comments. We're looking for how we're shipping the solutions we talked about earlier. The one thing that I'm finding is there's rules inside the organization that some people, and Dan and I were talking about it earlier, is there's rules inside of our company that have been inherited. And so, just looking at them and asking the whys, why are we doing this? And it's actually getting us back to some places where it's breaking down some of the, I'd say, standards that people have said that should be in place, and that we're thinking differently. I'll tell you, asking the retail stores to do something that, for me, I came from the food industry. Receiving in the middle of the night was normal in the food industry, right? Loblaws, that's when they do their shelving. Indigo doesn't. And so introducing the idea of doing, a midnight shelving for Indigo was, oh dear God. But I got to tell you, they're adapting to it. But that's the time, and that's the things that, the store needs to think about. I've got capacity issues on one side with a carrier, and I've got a retail store that needs to shift how it's thinking. And then on my side, an operation that needs to flex to help meet that. And that's the paradigm. When we think about solutions with our partners that we have, is that how are we bringing those solutions forward so that all of us can win? Whether it's the retail, and of course, my operation can change as well. Yeah. And so that's what we're doing.
Dan, with the clients that you work with, are there any solutions in particular that you see as being really helpful in terms of managing capacity in a more intelligent manner?
Well, there's a few things. I think that if you're in staple products, delivering milk or bread or things of that sort, or even retail traffic that's very steady. And your business is interesting because it's going through changes, but other retail businesses maybe have a little bit more consistent traffic. So you can look at a dedicated truck model where you can get favorable pricing. You can sign a long-term deal with a trucking company. And it's a win-win because they get a revenue stream, they know what their bottom line is going to be, and you have a chance of negotiating a bit more favorably than if you're just buying capacity on the market. So I think there's that piece. I think what you're suggesting, Heather, too, is that collaborating, sharing stuff with the carrier, your data, what you do, looking at the carrier as a partner. Looking for ideas from the carrier. That's one thing that's sometimes overlooked, is that a lot of carriers are in there every day, they're moving your freight. Sometimes they know your freight better than you as a shipper do. So you want to look for ideas from the folks you work with and try to come up with solutions that work for both sides. I think those are some of the basics, really. And also just be open-minded to change. Don't just look at, if you're trying to reduce your costs in transportation, if you're just focused on the transportation costs, and you're not looking at supply chain, you've got blinders on. You really need to look at where your warehouses are, where everything is, and see if you can put something together over a multi-year basis, depending on where you're going and what your plans are and where your customers are, where your vendors are, so you can negotiate something long-term with a carrier. Then you can do something a little bit more favorable. I think this capacity thing is, we've kind of soft pedaled a little bit here on this panel, but it's coming. And I think we'd be naive to think that even though we're fairly stable right now, that we're not going to have an issue. That issue's coming.
The annual Decisions Roundtable was conducted in partnership with the Toronto Area Council of CITT at the Maritime Ontario facilities in front of a live audience. It brought together some of the most respected minds in transportation from across the country. Watch for future episodes as we further examine the latest shipper-carrier issues.